Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello! So, a theme that I'm noticing beginning to emerge in a lot of the conversations I want to have and record and share on the podcast recently seems to be about taking some of these more fundamental, foundational astrology and human design concepts and then inviting guests who have these signatures in their body graph, in their birth chart, whatever, right? And I'm noticing that as I'm having these conversations, the reason why they feel so exciting to me is in my own journey and experience and experimentation, I found that these concepts are really embodied. But I've noticed a little bit of discrepancy, especially when I'm having readings, when I'm doing readings for someone who's relatively new to human design or to astrology. These words and these concepts can feel very nebulous, and they can feel like they're a little bit removed from daily life, right? They're a little bit removed from someone's lived experience. And through these conversations, I'm really hoping that you can see that they are not, that they are very real parts of our experiences, and that there are practitioners and people, creatives, artists who are really embracing these concepts and allowing these concepts to shift how they are moving through life. So this conversation is one of those. It's with my dear friend, Joanne Chen, who is an energy refinement mentor and spiritual guide. And Joanne and I went way back. We met when we were both freshmen at Manhattan School of Music, which was 18 years ago, which is crazy for me to think about. And Joanne and I have been close friends ever since. So in this conversation, we talked about being a projector, what that means from a human design perspective, and what it means for projectors to have success as their signature and to wait for an invitation. We go really deep in this conversation, but we also made sure to cover the basics. And Joanne is a Splenic Projector, which will be defined in the conversation if you listen to it. And yeah, I think it's really exciting to have Joanne here because I am a generator and I am surrounded by projectors. I can talk about what I've observed about the projector experience, but I can't really speak from the perspective of being a projector, from the perspective of my deconditioning journey, because I'm not a projector. So yeah, this is such an exciting conversation, and it's truly a gift to have Joanne here. I can't wait for you to get to this conversation. The last thing I'll mention is Joanne is generously offering a discount for Healing the Spirit listeners who want to work with her and to join her program. So just reach out to Joanne for more details and mention that you heard about her work from Jonathan's podcast or from Healing the Spirit. Okay, so this is my conversation on being a projector with Joanne Chen. Enjoy. Well, welcome, Joanne. Welcome back.
Hi, John. So happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited and yeah, super, super looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today because Um, Talking about human design is just one of my fascinations at the moment. Like I find myself so enamored with the system and like really interested to hear like other people's experience with it. And yeah, something that I've really appreciated from being in conversation with you, but also reading what you wrote more recently on social media has been your deep dive into human design. So you are a projector, and we're going to talk all about
Yes.
being a projector today.
Uh-huh.
But maybe before we get into it, I'm curious if you can, if for those of you listening who are not familiar with Joanne, maybe you can give us a little introduction, whatever feels alive for you in this moment about you and maybe a little bit of your backstory and also what you do.
Yeah, all right. So, well, I'm Joanne and I currently reside in Bali, but tapping around in Asia a little bit. And I've been doing spiritual related coaching that infuse human design, gene keys, and energy work in general into my mentorship. And I came to this place from classical music. And that was actually how John and I met. We went to college together in a music conservatory in New York. And when I was in grad school back in 2012, there was a big shift happened for me because I was going through a lot of emotional ups and downs in my intimate relationship. Then I realized that I was following a template that the society was programming me to do or my family expectation. So I had a big mental breakdown, went into the psych ward, the whole shenanigan. But that was also the moment that I realized I tapped into something really real that was possibly not easy to see for people, which was how our cognitive behavior came through the energy that we unconsciously held. So I started diving into learning about more about cognitive behavior. And in fact, I was already quite aware of it because of my background as a pianist
Mhm.
and as a musician regarding how we read music, how we play, and how we perform, how we express our emotions, which comes down to a bigger picture is how to be human, right?
Mhm.
And that really connected me to human design maybe a couple of years after all of that, after I steered away from the music scene. Well, I was still teaching, but I started spending a lot more time exploring what really fascinated me, which was the spiritual, the unseen
Yeah.
world. So I came in touch with human design maybe back in 2014 or 15. And at that time, accessing detailed information about human design wasn't that easy. And I was back in Taiwan during that time. So I just focused on the strategy and authority as a
Right.
projector
Right.
and focus on the whole projectors not here to work thing until something happened in 2016 or 15 when my money was running out.
Mm.
And that became really interesting because I was kind of half conscious about experimenting with human design and half unconscious about it.
Mhm.
When the money thing came into picture, it was really like, oh, okay, I completely forgot the whole thing with human design in 2016, but it's like what I needed to survive.
Yeah.
Um, and I still got invited to to teach um, through my network because I'm a 2/4
Mhm.
projector.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, I was following my strategy quite naturally after, I would say, a year or two being in human design. But then I steered away from it for a few years, just going back to how, conditioning and programming is. But there's part of me still understood that I am not operating like a generator. And a lot of interesting happened after
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting to hear you share your story from this perspective because obviously because we're friends, I've
Yeah.
heard and I've been kind of, from afar watching your journey. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting to me hearing you talk about your experience knowing that you're a projector and even just I hear the non-linear nature of deconditioning as you were speaking. That this
Yeah.
process of like deconditioning or knowing more of your type and how your energy works is very rarely like the straight line situation,
Yeah.
right? It's like, as you mentioned, when certain circumstances come, like maybe we run out of money or we break
Mhm.
up from a major relationship, it shifts our ability to kind of maybe perform our strategy and authority the way we think we need to, right? Which
Yeah.
I'm gonna rein myself back a little bit because I feel like I'm gonna fall down into a rabbit hole there. But maybe before we get too deep into this, would you say a little bit more, Joanne, about what it means to be a projector? Just like, if someone's bumping into this podcast, right? And maybe they've known a little bit about human design, but they haven't fully studied it. Maybe they haven't gotten a reading. Can you talk a little bit more about, yeah, what that word means?
Uh-huh. So I'll give like a general version
Yes.
first.
Yes.
So projector, I believe it takes about 20% of the population, based on the pseudoscience that Ra created, right? So because we don't know where the data came from, but it's at roughly 20 to 22%. And projector are here to guide, which means that projector are here to manage energy and to direct energy. As a projector, the way that we operate is quite different from 70 to 75% the world that are composed by generators, which have generally says have more consistent energy than projector. Not necessarily always having consistent energy, but have more consistent energy than projectors. And because projectors um, uses we uses our experiences, we uses what we're fascinated about, a system that we master to guide others. So it's not necessarily about guiding in a general way or life coaching, but a projector could be an expert in violin or like an expert in jumping ropes.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but then the projector is deep diving into all aspects of that one system
Mm.
she or he is really into. But then because projector has what we call a penetrative aura at the same time that is vulnerable, so we naturally taking conditioning from the people that we came in touch with, and being conditioned means that you're taking other people's energy and sometimes you make it your own. So when you make it your own, you might believe that certain thoughts or certain emotions are yours, certain beliefs are yours. But that is not necessarily a bad thing because projectors are here to be conditioned. We are here to learn through the conditioning. And when we learn through the conditioning that came from the others, we understand the others as well. And it's a slightly different from generators that we actually, it's really hard for us to see ourselves. And of course, as you move into this self-awareness thingy, you are going to be self-aware, but there are going to be some sort of I wouldn't say block, but we see ourselves through other people.
Yeah.
So it might look like I'm talking to Jonathan, and then through the conversation, I see something that he shared that's associated with a pattern inside of myself. And I became aware of, oh, yeah, I think I have that as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. As you're speaking about this penetrative aura that projectors have, something I'm wondering about too is whether you feel like projectors also learn about the subjects they're passionate around or they're fascinated by through that relationship with the other. Maybe more
I
so
believe
than,
so.
yeah, maybe more
Yeah.
so than the other types. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. For me, I learned most about energy work through conversation with other people and then through being in engagement with other people. Like I've taken Reiki and I've done Reiki too, but it's like actually nothing I didn't know already after I moved to Reiki too. But it's really through my interaction with the others that I expanded my knowledge or understanding of the modality
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel like a flavor I'm hearing from what you're saying is maybe also informed by your 2-4 profile, which you also mentioned in the beginning, the second line mind having this
Mm-hmm.
kind of natural knack for certain things. When you mentioned Reiki, to me, like that kind of feels like um this experience of like, yeah, I already know this. I already got this. And the fourth line, having this ability to kind of gather information and notice opportunities from like close contact with people.
For sure, yeah. And I think being a 2/4 projector will operate very differently from somebody being a 3/5 or a 5/1
Mhm.
or even a 1/3.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So I'm curious to hear you speak more about this piece around waiting for invitation because you kind of mentioned it earlier, and then we went into having you talk more about projector, but and you've written about this, Joanne. So I'm curious to hear your take on this because something that I hear from a lot of projectors, especially earlier on in their exploration or their journey with human design, is this question of what do you mean I'm supposed to wait? Like, am I just supposed to like sit around and do nothing, And yeah, I'm curious to hear your take on this and also maybe share a little bit with us your journey with it. Like, how has your understanding of waiting for an invitation evolved over time?
Yeah. Waiting for invitation. Um, I think first of all, we have to split these words. We
Mm,
have to split wait
mhm,
and invitation.
mhm,
And then we have to look into our individual interpretation of what waiting means. So a lot of people think that waiting is something that looks like you're doing nothing. But when you're waiting, you're actually not doing
mhm,
nothing.
mhm,
That was a funny sentence. It's you use that time to deep dive into the system that you are fascinated about.
mhm,
And because I work with universal laws, so if we take it through that perspective, if you're focusing on waiting, or if you're not clear with what waiting means for you, then you're going to attract the exact meaning of what you assign to the word wait.
yeah.
So if somebody who first came into human design hear about wait for invitation, and then the only thought that they have is, oh, am I just supposed to wait for things to come to me? Then they're not actually maximizing the time and the time they can use while they are waiting. And in fact, projectors are not always waiting, because the only thing we need to wait for invitation is the big things in our lives. For example, a committed relationship, a business partner, or a business opportunity,
Yeah.
Signing a client, or moving countries, buying a house, like bigger things.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for invitation to make a friend. You don't have to wait for invitation to get dinner from somewhere fancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And my own evolution is that because I have rarely focused on the word wait, but then I focus on the word invitation. So it's easier for me to see when invitation comes into my field. But then at the same time, projectors are not here to receive or accept every single invitation that comes your way, because some of the invitation are not necessarily healthy for us, especially when there's no recognition. And this is what trips many projectors up. And I've been tripped up as well, because throughout time, as a projector in experiment, we have to understand that we have to understand how we individually want to be recognized. So, for example, when I had a master degree in music, that was a recognition, because I spent all this time mastering, playing the piano, and people recognize me because I have that piece of certificate. And it served me really well for some time, because that was also how I recognized myself in that process. But then as I shifted to guide energy, to lead in the spiritual sense, there is no certificate to get. So my whole definition of recognition changed. And it turned into more about whether people can accept the way I guide. Do they recognize who I am as a guide? In a sense, it became a little bit less superficial from certain perspective. And it's more about me, and which could also be challenging in that sense, because it really requires a lot of self-clarity.
Yeah. 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 This piece around self-clarity feels really important to me. I guess I'm curious to just have you talk more about that.
Okay, so so the self-clarity, okay, because something did come up. It was really interesting when I first started transitioning to guiding in a almost non-tangible way. The first year, there were some hurdles between my clients and I, mainly because I am really direct and I touch exactly where it needs to be touched in that moment of time. And it could be really challenging when people are not fully surrendering into my essence as an individual. And I see the differences between those who recognize me as a person compared to those who came to me because they think I can help them. So the subtle difference is the former one recognized me as how my soul is like. And the later one is like, It doesn't need to be me. It
Mm.
can be anybody. They just need somebody to help them, to give them a hand,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is perfectly fine. But that just wasn't what I was doing.
Yeah.
That just wasn't what I was doing. Like I wasn't about to go general. I wasn't about to go like, hey, everything is great. Like you're
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
Because I'm going to say what I see,
Hmm.
what I sense. So it actually took me a few years to um, learn a bunch of different modalities just so I can serve my clients better,
Yeah.
to understand why was this happening.
Mm.
And of course, like what I just shared with you was after these all these years, if I finally came to some sort of clarity, was that I never really um, owned the fact that my penetrative aura could be really challenging for some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was trying to dim it so other people can feel better about themselves. But then it came to a point where even when I don't say anything, they are still going to be uncomfortable. Since the projector aura goes directly to the G center that represents identity, love, and direction.
Mm.
So some people say when they are in front of me, they just feel like they are completely naked. Not because
Yeah.
I'm trying to make them naked, but just like, oh, oops, I don't know. That just happened. In a way, just I have to fully honor how my aura operates instead of trying to be like a generator and be, enveloping.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 And I think going back to the self-clarity piece, something you said a moment ago really felt very true for me, which is that sometimes, especially if you are a projector who also guides or consults in your, 3D dimensional job description, right? There
Yeah,
is there is going to be this experience of like people coming to you with kind of a general thing that they could have tapped anyone on the shoulder to help them, right? But
yeah.
um, what I'm hearing from you is that your process of becoming more clear about what you're interested in, who you are, and the specific way that you guide, and noticing even when you're speaking maybe to a potential client, whether they can take it or not, or whether that's where they would like to go, is very interesting to me. And I guess here's what I'm wondering about, Joanne.
Mhm.
For projectors who are listening to this right now, right? Do you feel that also the clients who come to you are in some ways also playing a role in you coming into greater clarity of who you are?
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's for sure. And I also believe that regardless of the energy type, there's always, well, in Tao philosophy, which is another thing that I incorporate into all the energetic stuff, and it's also a part of human design, actually. There's always yin in yang, and there's always yang in yin. And in English, it's like there's always masculine and feminine, and
Mm,
there's always feminine and a masculine. And being a projector, we need other people, not in a desperate sense, but just for us to be who we are, we need to have people to guide. And so we absolutely um, need to see ourselves when we are interacting with other people to a certain extent. And I also believe that everybody that comes into our realm, doesn't matter why they came in for the, even if they just came in for a general thing without recognition, that was a part of the process as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah, helping to understood that, okay, yeah, this person didn't actually see me. She didn't actually recognize me, but there was a certain thing that they are looking for, and because I do have a fourth line body, so people sometimes feel like, oh yeah, you're like my friend. I'm like, no, we don't know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my network sometimes is a little bit bigger than
Mm.
I thought.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think, at least in your experience maybe of receiving, um, I'm talking more about like three-dimensional level like guidance, right? From maybe generators or manifesting generators. How do you feel that the way that a practitioner who is a generator or a manifesting generator, how is their how are they different than projectors?
The generators that I've seen or been with, there's always a warmth.
Mm.
Even if that warmth doesn't come from the heart, it's still the warmth. There's still a warmth.
It's very true.
It's very natural to feel that sacral energy or to
Mm.
emit that sacral energy for generators. And there is a natural, just a natural way of being that everything is a celebration
Yeah.
type of energy. Not necessarily everybody, but there's a, even if I'm working with the generator clients, there is a natural encouragement that shows up when they are talking to themselves.
Mhm.
But then for me, I knew that that didn't, like, the way to encourage people, I had to learn as a part of my open sacral wisdom. I have to learn to do it.
Wow.
It's not
Yeah.
something that I naturally give.
Mm. That's so
And now,
fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now it's becoming easier and easier that, you know, I had to learn that sometimes it's okay to not always say what you really think, especially being a projector.
Yeah.
And I think it's really to respect where people are
Hmm.
instead of trying to move them through the potential we see in them,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is a very projector thing as well, because it's so easy for us to see potentials.
Yes. Yes. Wow, this is so fascinating, Joanne, because this wasn't exactly where I thought we were going to go, but here's something I've been thinking a lot about because I do agree with you that that word guide can sometimes get confusing for people who are just maybe beginning to go down the human design rabbit hole, right? Because
Yeah,
that word is synonymous with like a certain job description that we now have.
right.
Like we have guides, facilitators, coaches, right? Mentors. And what I've found is at first, when I found out that I was a generator, I was like, oh, that means that I can't guide. But then I realized that guiding in terms of like being able to be a facilitator and be in some sort of reciprocal exchange around that
Mm-hmm.
service is actually a skill I can learn. Like, and it's a skill
Yes.
that anyone can learn in some ways, right? To a certain extent, it's a
Mm-hmm.
skill that anyone can learn. But I do think that in experimenting with human design on myself, with friends, and even just interactions with colleagues, I noticed that we all guide in slightly different ways, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think to your point, like the generator way of guiding is maybe more like that mama bear hug, whereas the projector way of guiding can be very direct and very um like there's kind of a cutting through the noise, that I think that
Yeah.
the projector aura is really primed for. So this is my experience, with working with pretty, you know, generators and manifesting generators who are pretty deep in their deconditioning, as well as with projectors who are deep in their conditioning. And this is from the perspective of me receiving. I found that generators, like the generators that I work with who are really skilled at guiding people, they tend to be kind of like experts at whatever it is that they're expert at. And there's kind of a vastness to their way of being, and they don't always like adjust you in a way. Like energetically, there's not this like adjustment. It's more
Mm,
like here's the map of what's possible, and like
yeah.
get there yourself, like help yourself. Here's the buffet, right? Like I'm pointing you to that. Whereas I found that projectors can be really good at actually like hearing what is said, or like hearing what is between the lines, right? Like projectors kind of
Yeah.
get deeper into it, which this is reminding me of something you said earlier, and also I wanted to read you something that you wrote in one of your posts that I
Oh,
thought was really
okay.
beautiful. Yeah, because you were speaking about projector children. And
Mm,
what you wrote was about if you have projector children, always be curious about what they say rather than focusing on how it makes you feel. Which, first of all, I just want to pause there because that's huge, right? It's like basically you're saying, like, listen to what your projector child is saying or what your projector friend is saying rather than focusing so much on how, like what comes up for you, right? And then continuing, this is your words. As parents, you can share how you feel, but don't prioritize your emotions and use your ego to dilute their words. Trust their timing and purity when sharing. Ask their intentions and have a conversation instead of trying to teach them anything. You may learn a thing or two. Which I think is so. So, my partner's a projector, and I feel like this is a skill I've had to learn, actually. As a generator myself, like it's so common for, and I grew up with two manifesting generator parents. So, it's very common for us to kind of interact from the lens of like, oh, what you said like makes me feel a certain way, right? Which is in some ways fine because I think uh generators have this like in the language of human design, this warm enveloping aura. And so like in a way, it's more just like, okay, if that didn't feel good, like I'll just push you out of my aura and I'll just like hang out, right? Like we'll hang out in our respective aura. But with my partner, what I've had to learn is like really tuning in, actually. And like
yeah.
really, really tuning in and allowing myself. There's also kind of a shift that sometimes needs to happen, like energetically. I feel like a lot of generators kind of have this big energy, and like their bigness. Sometimes you don't need to attune very much because it's all over the place.
Yes.
Like it fills the room, right?
It's very
Whereas
easy to sense.
it's very easy to sense, whereas my sense is when really working with a projector, right, or even receiving, guidance from a projector, sometimes I have to kind of tone down the party that's going on inside of me to really be able to like be with them. There is kind of a very relational way that projectors it seems to me are very natural for a lot of projectors, especially once they start deconditioning. Okay, so I just said a lot of words. I'm curious what your if you have anything to say to that. Mhm.
What you just said really helped me to see my dynamic with my partner, who is also a generator.
Yeah, which is also something that we kind of bookmark to maybe talk about in this
Yeah.
conversation because I think that generator projector dynamic is very common. Like I have a lot of projector mentors and friends as a
Mhm.
generator.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll refer to the projector children thing first,
Mhm.
just like who I was as a projector children, and then who and what I see in projector children today with generator parents through my network, through my friends. Um, when I was a kid, I had a nickname. The nickname was Little Chili because what I said was spicy. It didn't care about how the adult would think. And Ra, the founder of Human Design, he actually said that human design is actually not for adults. It's for adults to know how to raise children. It's for the future children. So my mom also made a mark last month when I was talking to her about my personal relationship challenges. And she said, well, you might not say much, but what you say is usually really powerful. And when she say powerful, it means uncomfortable. But then that, oh, this was like something I can, take in and then transform myself. I was like, oh no, that actually really hurts to some space in her that she wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So it also created challenges when I was growing up, making friends. And I think many projectors have the same experiences. And the first thing they came into human design is they learned about I have to wait for invitation to say things that I see.
Mhm.
Oh my God, this is like the most challenging thing for projectors. um, because we have to hold back our tongue. We cannot just throw it out there as it might give people a bad trip.
Mm.
But this is also a very nuanced piece that I have learned in the past few years, especially through my relationship with my partner, who is a generator, that I need to realize that saying what I see or not saying what I see shouldn't diminish or erase who I am.
Mm.
And I think that is what a lot of projectors were afraid of when they came into this. I cannot give unsolicited
Mm.
advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because ultimately, it's really not about them when we are sharing advice. It needs to come through from this space.
Right.
If it's about them, that's a whole other story, whole other blueprint
Mm.
to
Mhm.
to follow. But if it's in a relational dynamic, who you are, what you are, whether it's your ego or your not self that you're processing, you're deconditioning, that still exists.
Right. Right.
And I also feel that the general pop psychology of the whole attachment style, avoidant or anxious attachment style, is very tricky
Mm.
to apply that to a projector and generator dynamic because it became a very blanket statement when we are dancing with these dynamics.
Mm. Mm.
For example, um, like you mentioned earlier, when the generator is pissed at each other, you're just like, okay, out of my aura. We just, do our thing.
Yeah.
That was very much what I feel with my partner in the last
Mm.
2 days because that was what it was. And
Mm.
both my parents are generators. So my mom did exactly the same thing when she
Mm.
wasn't happy with whatever I said or what I did.
Yeah.
And when I was a child, it was really challenging because I didn't understand why I suddenly don't receive the love. anymore.
Mm.
But it
Mm.
didn't mean that she doesn't love me. She just, needs her space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa. I think you just helped me connect a very specific dot. And it's almost purely energetic, Joanne, because
Mhm.
this is so interesting because what I'm hearing from you, and let me know if I'm translating this correctly, but what I'm hearing
Okay.
from you, if I'm translating it to like a human design lens, is you in your dynamic with these generators, you experience a certain kind of sacral warmth that's kind of coming
Yes.
from them that feels, especially to as a non-sacral, right, to your undefined sacral, feels
Yes.
like love, or feels like
Yes.
affection, feels like closeness, right?
Yes.
But
Intimacy.
ultimately, intimacy, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, as the case with any generators or manifesting generators, there's always a point where we need to kind of break away, right? Or like it feels like a no, right? Our sacral is saying
Mhm.
no, and so it's like there's a shutting down that happens, and that shutting down can feel really scary, especially to the open sacral. Is
Yeah.
that kind of what I'm hearing? Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly it. I, for a long time, I thought I was being anxious, that I couldn't get that sacral energy anymore. I couldn't taste that thing anymore.
Mhm.
So there was a big quote to quote like trauma. I believe it was a trauma when I was a kid. Was maybe I was 3 or 4. My mom and I had a disagreement, mostly just because she was angry at me. What did I know? I was 3 years old.
Mhm.
Like, I don't even remember what it was about. But what I did remember was my mom told me that because I wasn't behaving the way that she expected,
Mhm.
and she doesn't like me as a daughter.
Mhm.
So she wanted to sell me to somebody else, which is a terrible thing to say to any children. But my mom was only maybe 28 at the time. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, fine, you're in your state and return, whatever. Like, I don't take it personally anymore. But I did it. It like the energy did run through me for a very long time.
Mhm.
That I remembered how anxious I was back in 2015 when I was uh, having a summer fling with my former boyfriend. We were standing in the airport of, I think it was Romania, and he was just being a man. Now he's like, "Oh, you know what? You stay here. I'm gonna go to check what the flight gate is, yada yada yada." And then he just disappeared,
Mhm.
and that triggered so much anxiety in me. And that was the first time I became aware of this childhood thing. So when I look at through a human design lens, I realized it's actually very different from the just anxious or avoidant attachment style. Maybe it worked, it helped in the beginning, saying, oh, maybe I didn't need to be anxious.
Mhm.
And I can, pull back a little bit. But then it came down to the mechanism,
Yeah.
which is, oh, I actually just because I lost the sacral warmth.
Mhm.
So I needed to get out of the addiction.
Yeah.
It made everything so much more neutral.
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. How? Let me see what the question that wants to come through here is. As you deepen in your, I'm going to use this word, as you deepen in your healing and self-knowing journey, as well as in your, because I know this is another passion of yours, which is reality creation, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
reality creation principles. As you as you deepen into these principles and these practices, how has your relationship with your undefined sacral, your open sacral shifted over time?
It was an interesting journey, and I would say it's connected to what you mentioned earlier, how the deconditioning or the energetic shift is not linear.
Mm,
So I started with seeing all my open center as a gift. And then I was with the manifesting generator coach, told me that's where your wound is. So I was like, okay, I mean, we live in a polarized world, right? There's
mm,
polarity. So let me tap into that a little bit to see the wound aspect and to tie that into reality creation.
mm,
I realized that when I focused on the open center being a wound, it's harder for me to shift things.
mm,
Not that I'm not acknowledging what has happened, it's just I don't need to stay there. And a lot of times we learn through discomfort. I mean, actually, all the time, we learn through discomfort, and there are messages, there are information that came through it. So I realized that when I see it in such a wound or a gift, kind of Libra, which I am also Libra,
mhm,
um, weighing the pros and cons, I actually took away the transformational opportunity.
mm,
And that transformational opportunity needs to come through a third option, which is just this is what is. Like
right.
what I am feeling through my open center, this is what is. I don't need to define or label it as a wound or a gift. But this energy is passing through my emotional center. For example, when my partner is who is an emotional authority not being happy with me, I have to allow it to pass it through me because we don't hold any energy unless we started naming it and claim it to be ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I focus on that, it became a lot easier to move through healing, to move through transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think what I'm hearing from you is that the attachment or the identification with that experience is kind of what makes it maybe stay a little longer than it needs to. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I actually came back to seeing it as a gift too.
Mm,
It's just that all of it doesn't matter what it moves through, it's all a gift.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's also interesting. This is maybe a good time to like remind those listening about like the open and the defined centers because I think I mean I've definitely had this amnesia a lot in my deconditioning journey like where for example instead of okay so for example we both have we're both we both have open emotional center, right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't feel emotions.
No,
Or
no,
it
absolutely
doesn't
not. Yeah.
it doesn't
We
mean that we
feel
don't
so
we
much.
feel so much. And it doesn't mean that, I think it's also important, like for me, the definition or openness is more about whether there's consistency there, right? So, like, for
Yes.
example, as a sacral being, for me, I know there is consistent energy. But that consistent energy, first of all, doesn't mean that it's always the same at all periods of my life. Like, for example, right
Right.
now, I would say I'm in a period of more sacral energy. And
Mhm.
the wave of like the up and the down of the sacral is much bigger, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I've also gone through periods where it's like smaller, but it's just like more consistently small or more consistently large.
Yeah.
Whereas I imagine, or at least from my observation for projectors, that sacral energy can, like, sometimes my partner wakes up and he has a lot of energy, and then other days he has no energy whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's more that inconsistency rather than, because I think this is where human design can really get people tripped up, especially with the emotional center, because and also I think this is just part of the deconditioning process, where open emotional people with open solar plexus like us can end up rejecting their own emotions or not claiming their own
Yeah.
emotions. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. I think not claiming our emotions is a universal problem.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yeah.
with like open sacral, because the open center also absorb and it amplifies,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And deep down in our subconscious, we know that is not necessarily ours. So I remember I worked with a client a few years ago, and then she is a projector having 7 centers defined, except sacral and emotion, solar
Mm.
plexus. And I remember she mentioned that back in the days when she is experiencing that, it can almost feel like an attack when we're encountering somebody with a huge emotional wave.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and in the back in the day, she used to just throw it back. So, however, whatever you give me,
Mm.
maybe it's a level 5 energy of frustration, I
Mhm.
throw back 10 frustration
Yeah.
back to you, because that is the fight and flight system
Mhm.
in us that wants to defend.
Yeah.
But then I learned something from a generator. I
Mm.
believe he's a generator. Do you know Ken Honda?
No.
So he's a Japanese millionaire
Mm.
who wrote a book called Happy Money.
Mm.
So, but then he's also
Of
a
course, a
it's,
generator would write about
right?
happy money. It's too funny.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
yeah,
Continue.
yeah. He wrote several books about money, about being happy with
Mm.
money, how your money, you need to take care of money, all that type of stuff, and also being Japanese.
Mhm.
It's there's interesting vibe over there. But then he's also an energy worker, a very
Mm.
quiet one.
Mm.
So I did a free master class with him earlier this year that I found very helpful. Is that with the open center, doesn't matter where it is, we always have to remember there is a screen, a filter
Mm.
over there. So what comes in, take what's right for you, and then dissolve what is not right for you and let it flow out. And obviously, he didn't talk about it in human design, but I found it really helpful to apply it to the open center and to be aware that in a moment we want to react through the nervous system defense mechanism. What will this help?
Mm. Yeah.
The bigger picture.
Yeah.
How would this help the bigger picture?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And with the sacral, I think what you said was really important, because that's not just for defined sacral, but it's also the wisdom that being open sacral need to understand is that your energy fluctuates.
Mm.
And that wisdom goes for the sacral people. When we deliver it to the sacral people, is that, hey, like you can't just go, go, go.
Mhm.
Even if you think you can, but you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I also want to speak about success because the
Mm,
projector signature is success. And again, that's another one of those words that can get lost in translation.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, how have you understood the meaning of that word, Joanne, as a projector? Like, what do you think Ra was talking about filtered through your lens and your design when he was talking about projector success?
For me, projector success is a combination of being all the other energy type, but only their signature.
Mm, mm,
So it's to feel satisfied, to feel safe, to
mm,
feel peace, to feel the little surprise that comes in your day-to-day life. To me, that
mm,
is success
mhm,
because that is what living truly means when I put all of these aspects from different energy type together for
mhm,
me.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. So am I constantly content, or if I feel discontent, can I move back to contentment?
Yeah.
Can I, when I feel disappointed, which is very rare, and disappointment is a reflector, not self.
Yeah.
When I feel disappointed, can I refocus myself on the little surprise that comes in my daily life that makes me feel delightful?
Mm,
And when I um, feel angry about something, can I stay in peace?
mhm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like all the energy type came through the world to teach each other something
Yeah.
about their signature.
Hmm. Hmm. So what I'm hearing from you is that there's also an element of transformation in success, like knowing how to transform
Yeah.
a state of being is maybe part of what that success can feel like as well.
Yeah. And, you know, I contemplate a lot on ancient wisdom, like
Mm,
Taoism, and sometimes even Bible, even if it's slightly manipulated
yeah.
through
Yeah.
whatever dominated system there was, but just things that has passed down for thousands and thousands of years. I tend to take an interest in it, and also because I heard a phrase a while back saying that, hey, like if something that keeps passing down to through generations, like wisdom that passed down through generations, there's meaning. There's special meaning inside of it. It could be changed a bunch of times into different versions
Yeah.
throughout the years, but there is very deep stuff in there for it to be able to share over and over. So when I tap into it, the signature that all the energy type has is actually all in the ancient wisdoms. Being at peace, finding joy and gratitude in everyday life, and feeling content,
Mm,
which actually connects to exactly how energy works,
yeah.
which is to connect to these energy because you attract what you are,
Mm,
not what you want.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Reality as a mirror.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What about the spleen? I know you're a splenic authority,
Yeah.
and I'm curious what that experience has been like for you because whenever I read the text on splenic projectors, I always get this imagery of like butterflies, you know? Like it almost feels like splenic projectors get this guidance, and your authority is the spleen, and the spleen speaks an intuition that is just in the moment and it's very slight and it's very kind of it doesn't repeat itself, right? Like that's what we get from the kind of more textbook definition of it. But yeah, I guess I'm curious to hear more about your lived experience with like that. And also, okay, so I'm gonna preface this by saying, or contextualize this by saying, for me as a sacral authority person, I feel like there was a period, Joanne, where I really over intellect. intellectualized it, right? Where I was
Mhm.
like, oh, there's no way I can just follow my sacral. Like, I have to pay bills, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I think that's very normal for all the different types with their various authorities. But something I've learned is that actually life does provide. And
Yes.
also as an adult, this is something that has been, I think, a big theme for me this year, specifically in 2025, where, I turned 35 and I suddenly realized like, oh, I'm not a child anymore. Which is such a shocking realization because then this whole thing about experimenting with my sacral suddenly feels more accessible because I'm like, oh, there's no authority figure really telling me when to do things anymore. Like, yes, I have responsibilities,
Mhm.
but like there are these little like I've been calling them, I've never seen people in human design talking about this, like doing like little sacral games where like for example, I would kind of do something that I enjoy doing and then it kind of lights me up and then I would
Yeah.
spend more of that extra energy, like the residual energy to do stuff that I have to do that I don't like very much until it
That
kind of
is
runs
brilliant.
out. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Um, but yeah, I guess in terms of being a splenic authority, specifically, how do you hear your spleen, or does your experience of the spleen match the experience of um like what is said in the human design text? And what does it feel like to follow your spleen, like as an authority?
I think splint authority is like a big topic for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can tell.
especially like I was going through some of the old videos that I shared like several years ago, and I was talking about splitting authority like 6 years ago. It was a terrible explanation, but I'm like, oh, interesting. Like how I relate to it has changed.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so splitting authority, when my friend and I talk about splitting authority, we usually joke that a this is the rules of jungle. So if you didn't hear it, and then you are dead. If you hear it but you don't follow it, you're dead.
Mm, mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the um basic operation because it's one of the oldest energy center in human design.
Yep.
It's literally how we follow our instinct.
Mm.
But I also see a very interesting thing that I don't hear it in human design space a lot is about how we have evolved
Mm.
as human being and how we relate to our spleen also changed through the evolution.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, if we come back to the whole nervous system thing and the whole fight and flight, freeze and run stuff, um, the spleen will say no to anything that it feels like danger. But then what is your perception of danger?
Mm.
Your perception of danger changes with how your nervous system is.
Right.
So, for example, if we tie it to the strategy as a projector, um, with waiting for invitation to say something, if I continuously relate speaking something that's truthful to me, not because I want to change somebody, but because this is true for me.
Mm.
If I continue to tie that to danger, it's always going to be a no
Mm.
for my
Yeah.
spleen.
Yeah.
But then that is how my mind is influencing my physical functioning, right? So on the other hand, if I say, okay, it's actually absolutely safe for me to share how I feel and what I see, not because I want to change somebody or make somebody better,
Mm,
but because this is what I feel right in the moment. The spleen feels right to say this right now. I'm not going to get killed. Everything is okay.
yeah, yeah,
Then it changes the whole game.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a very interesting navigation that's connected to the emotional center mutation that is happening right now,
Yeah.
and also how our human brain, the intellectual side of it, has developed to its peak.
Mm,
That we are both rational and sensual creatures, and we have to honor both of it and to move our energy through that awareness in terms of how we experience with our authority.
yes. Yes. A couple things I want to point out here that I think first of all, thank you for that. That's such a brilliant observation about nervous system regulation and our relationship with our nervous system. And I would even add like our aura in terms of like energy work, right? Like in the system of energy work that I practice, for example, I would see people's memories and like the stories they tell themselves in their aura, and that I think really impacts too, like what we deem as safe and not safe. And what I'm
Yeah,
hearing from you is that because the spleen responds to that sense of like, I'm safe or I'm not safe, being a splenic authority person, right? In your human design does shift over time as well. And I'm remembering
yeah,
now last week when we were chatting off the record, we were also talking about this and how your relationship with your spleen has changed as you mature, like as a human being, and um you feel more safe, maybe in yourself, right? Would you say that
yeah,
that's accurate?
yeah. I think that's accurate, and to right onto that, I think it's also the part where we also need to, how should I put this? Need to honor the fact that our brain can actually control our body.
Mm.
Oh, I mean, that's basically what we do, right? Every day.
Yep. Yep.
But the capacity of how much it can actually control and influence our body. And because I do have the 18th gate in my personality sun, uh, in Gene Keys, that's my life's work. So it's about healing the mind.
Mm. Yeah.
And when we are operating through a place of survival,
Mm.
it's going to influence how we relate to
Mm.
our authority. It doesn't matter which authority you have.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
And I think for generators, like things you are fascinated about or things that lights you up can change over time as
Yeah.
well.
This has been a really big exploration for me because I think as a generator, going back to what you were saying earlier about kind of, you didn't exactly put it this way, but I'm sometimes I notice that when I'm interacting with non-sacrals,
Uh-huh.
there is kind of an addictive quality to like my sacral conditioning, Like as my sacral, kind of does whatever the sacral does in the room, like it can feel really good to the non-sacral, right?
Mhm.
And so uh, I'm calling that the sacral addiction. Like the sacral addiction is not just applicable to non-sacrals. Like we generators get addicted to it too. And sometimes what I see a lot Actually, I would say I get a lot of clients and mentees in this
Mhm.
state, actually, of being addicted to their own
Mm,
sacral activation.
generating, yeah.
Yeah, their sacral energy, right? And then they're in a moment of transition where their sacral is no longer responding to whatever it was that they were really
Right.
into back in the
Yeah.
days, right? And it's like it's very hard, especially, if you have open head, open ashna, it's very challenging because then you feel like you have to reorient your whole existence. You're like, oh, I need to quit my job. I need to break up with my partner. Like, what's wrong here? What's wrong here? Let me burn everything down. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think you made such a great point there because even the sacral in its consistency, like if you have a defined sacral, which means defined sacral energy, right? Or consistent sacral energy, that doesn't mean that what it will respond to will stay consistent.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Very true.
mhm. Yeah. And it can be very difficult for generators to just be like, yeah, actually, this is not working anymore, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like sometimes what you think you are responding to might not be what you actually can respond to, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because it
Exactly.
was a conditioning. Like, I'm supposed to love my
Mm,
job
yeah.
because I
Right.
studied this, so I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
And because I have this generating energy, so I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Um, okay, so here's another question I have for you, Joanne. As an artist who's also a projector, how do you feel or how do you perceive the difference in, an artist who's a projector versus maybe like an artist who's a generator?
I think it's how we are being creative is
Mm,
very different, or
mhm,
the area we are investing our creativity is different. Mm, I spent a long time avoiding being a teacher, even if I was constantly invited into that space,
yeah.
because I thought I wanted to be how the generator artists operate.
Mm, mhm,
So in college or in grad school, I had this whole idea of wanting to become a collaborative pianist, and I did a lot of it.
I remember actually you
Yeah,
went through a period. Yeah.
yeah, and I got a lot of invitation
Yeah.
doing it because that was actually what I was good at
Yeah.
since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, and also because it's really easy for me to sense other people's energy, how they are moving, how they
Mm,
are playing, so I can do a very good job at it. But
mm,
the moment when I wanted to become an institution hired pianist, that was when everything started falling apart because I couldn't meet the expectation of how they wanted me to operate.
mm.
Um,
Can you
whether
give an
it's
example?
in whether it's in the amount of time spent
Mm,
and the speed that even though I can learn very quickly, but it's just the volume that
mm.
came into my field
Yeah.
was ridiculous. And I have to be able to play anything that
Mm,
was assigned to
yeah.
me. I cannot pick and choose,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is,
Projector hell.
yeah, which was very challenging. It was super
Yeah.
challenging for me.
Yeah.
So, in the process of learning all these two new pieces, I was expected to guide at the
Mm,
same time
I see.
because the actual performer doesn't know what they're doing or didn't know what they were
Yeah.
doing,
Right.
which
Right.
was a very interesting space for me
Mm,
to be, because there was a weird recognition saying you should be doing guiding, you should guide, like you should be knowing this.
mhm,
But that was more coming from expectation of what that position needs to do
mm.
rather than who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I look at being a soloist or being a musician, that was hard as well because I
Mm.
cannot do the same concert over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I moved into the space to be, um, just creating music, because being a composer was also another thing that was seen or recognized in me, my ability to improvise, to just create music on the spot. So I went into that for a bit as well, but it was not sustainable in some sense, just because I was still trying to meet other people's expectation,
Mm. Yeah.
whether it was commission work or what other people would want to hear.
Mm.
But the interesting part is that even a couple of years ago, there was a few piano pieces that I created on YouTube. People are still commenting on it, asking where can I get the actual, score of it.
Whoa.
I was just like,
Whoa.
I don't know. I don't remember where it was. Um,
Wow.
and Chopin is a projector, was a projector.
Mm. Mhm.
He was an emotional projector,
Of course.
of course. And he wrote majority, like, piano pieces with mostly because that's what he mastered. That's the system.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Wow, that's such a great point.
But then he
Right.
was super depressed.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting to think about, how different types um can find their own path into being a creative and being an artist. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from what you shared with me is I think there's something kind of wrong with the industry itself, which was one of the things that we were also going to talk about. Like, I feel like, for many people who are artists or
Yeah.
creatives, we just can't really rely on doing it like how we're supposed to, you know?
Yeah, because the industry is valuing the volume of production
Yeah.
over the quality
Yeah.
of production. And I think that goes for generator
Mm,
as well, that even if you can do a lot more than non-sacrals, you still you can still burn out
absolutely. Absolutely.
if when you're being pushed, especially if somebody has a pressure center open in the
Yeah.
head and in the root center.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Um, I wonder if we're going to end on this note, actually, which was something we were going to talk about, Joanne. But, earlier you mentioned when you were talking about your story, the pressure to make money. And I'm curious to hear more about projectors and money. And,
Mm.
in terms of what you've seen in your journey as a projector, as well as, yeah, the clients that you guide.
I think for projector to relate to money is it really comes down to how we relate to energy.
Mm,
And we really have to understand that money doesn't come through generating, which is the biggest conditioning that
yeah.
anybody can get.
Yeah.
Because in a generator dominated world, we exchange our time and energy with money.
Hmm.
But when a projector has mastered their understanding in how energy works, They know money doesn't come through us.
Mm.
It doesn't come through me physically doing something. I was reflecting on this earlier today. I realized that actually the money I make right now is not less or not more compared to what I made back in 2017.
Mm.
But then the time I'm spending is about 10%.
Of what
The
you were
time of what I was doing.
in
I'm only
2017.
using 10% of the energy and time.
Mm.
So it really lies in how we as projectors recognize what abundance is.
Mm.
And a projector's experiment involves recognition and discernment.
Mhm.
The more that we can recognize that serves us, the easier that abundance is going to show up in
Mm.
our world. And that doesn't come from trying to prove yourself of how much you know
Mm.
or how much you see, because that's a danger for projector as well. And one of the biggest danger that I see in projectors who are dealing with money, dealing with deconditioning all at the same time is that they tend to grasp onto something really, really fast and then try to make that profitable
Mm. Yeah.
when they don't know too
Yeah.
much of it.
Yeah.
So they had a taste of success
Mm.
and they immediately associate that with this is something I can do.
Yeah.
That's actually a generating trap, generating conditioning trap.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something that projector really needs to learn from generators is to focus on what lights you up,
Mhm.
not if this is making me successful,
Mm.
because that is not going to sustain.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and it's also to be aware of that really everything we are experiencing in this three-dimensional reality is temporary.
Mm.
There is no consistent success or consistent content, consistent
Yeah.
satisfaction, surprise, or peace.
Yeah.
It's it comes from you choosing it
Yeah.
in every single moment, and that is the work that projectors are here to do. Choosing what is in alignment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. That's really, really powerful. Yeah. This is also making me think about something that a friend of mine who's also been on the podcast, Cody Smiley, has said to me in the past, which is she's a reflector. And she says, even if you don't have your sacral defined, you still have a sacral, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And it's of course, it sounds like duh. Yeah, we know that. But I think the current of the conversation in the human design space, sometimes it's easy to forget that, right? And I think to your point, like earlier, you just said something that really kind of was revelatory to me, Joanne, which is even for projectors, it's very important to figure out what lights you up. And
Yeah.
in fact, I have to say, looking at projectors around me mm, who feel a certain kind of contentment in their reality and the life that they've designed, it's mostly because they've stayed true to what actually matters to them.
Yes.
And I think that no matter your type, like that actually requires some fortitude. And this is something that I would say as a generator, I've learned a lot from projectors around me, colleagues and mentors, which
Mhm.
is how to be really committed and devoted to the things uh, that you chose, and that are truly aligned for you. And I think there's something in my design, as a 3/5, like, yes, I like to kind of do a little taste, and experiment here and there and like run away from the thing, but ultimately, like, there's so many carrots being dangled out there,
Mhm.
and the options are endless. And I think when we don't really take the time to understand what really matters to us, that's when we get into a lot of trouble. And I've found that it seems like the projectors around me have figured this out, you know, that, like, yeah, when you don't stay true to that, you get fucked. Like you fall into like a bad
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a while back, my partner was telling me how I have it good because my life is not attached to a physical location.
Mm,
And I can literally just be anywhere I want. And I said, I've been committed to this since 2014.
mm, mhm.
And it didn't happen right away. But
Yeah.
I have shaped my life to the way that I really wanted to be. And there were moments of times that I had to get a job that's tied to a certain location
Yeah.
or to a certain somebody. But then it was also through these experiences that I became clear and clear to know, oh yeah, this is actually the life I want.
Mm,
Just being location free and doesn't matter if I travel or not. Just the fact that I have that option,
yeah.
I have that choice. And and I think this is a lot of times when other people looking into my two line, they think that it just happened overnight.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
no, it didn't happen overnight. It,
Yeah.
it came through persistency
Yeah.
in connecting with a reality that I really, really want to experience.
Yeah.
And I think that also goes back to what I wrote about projector children and
Mm,
listening to projector children.
mm,
And this is something that I've been sharing with my clients, sharing with friends lately is that are you prioritizing your emotions or are you prioritizing experience?
mm.
Because I think it's quite challenging for people to be persistent.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that 80% of the world doesn't have willpower, doesn't have ego center
Yeah.
defined, but that doesn't mean you don't have willpower
Yes.
because it
Exactly.
takes practice and wisdom and understanding of how you operate to
Yeah.
utilize
Right.
your willpower to stay in persistency.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and it actually comes down to something that's so irrelevant to human design, but irrelevant to all human beings,
Hmm.
is that like, are you just saying no because something is challenging?
Mm. Hmm.
And how much
Yeah.
do you actually want that experience, or is your feelings more important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think that so many people have been taught to suppress their emotions. Maybe this is also
Yeah.
a generational thing, right? Like, there is
Mm.
kind of, when we look at some people in the older generation,
Mm.
there is more of that suppression of emotion, maybe because of
Yeah.
what they went through, the kind of trauma they went through. But I have found that in my own journey, it's been very important to actually, like, make a choice and then stick with it, you know, and
Yes.
and and trust that the process of sticking with it has value,
Yeah.
because, and this is again like bringing in my 3-5 profile. It is true that I think for 3-5s, there's something very natural about just kind of like abandoning ship and moving on to the next thing, right? Like turning away completely. But I found that actually there's something I learn. There's
Mhm.
also an experiment in like maintaining where you're at currently and building on that, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like I want to refine a little bit with what I said earlier. Is like it's not we're not acknowledging how we feel in certain
Hmm.
moments,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
pressing it down. So I'm just gonna go with my eyes closed and head straight into the wall.
Mm.
But it's like, okay, yeah, this happened. And like you said, making a decision.
Hmm.
Is this worth keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, I feel like this has been such an amazing conversation, Joanne. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your embodied experience, and for just so generously sharing it with us. Um, I'm curious to hear more about your current services and also, when I was looking through your work, I noticed you used the word energy refinement, at least this time around, and I thought that was such an interesting concept. So I kind of want to hear you talk a little bit about like what that means to you and what that looks like in your work and how you help people with energy refinement.
That is a word that I refined through many, many times
I
to
know,
finally
I
get
know.
to.
We've had conversations about this too.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a challenging. Uh, it's so challenging to put things into a word
I
for me
agree.
sometimes that
Yeah.
doesn't not trigger but like activate weird perceptions. But energy refinement comes from the foundation of that every human being is energy living inside of a body. And I remember long, long time ago, maybe when you invited me onto a podcast for the first time, and that wasn't that wasn't uploaded because it just took too long for me to give you a picture. At
Oh,
that
that's
time,
right. I forgot about
yeah,
this one.
yeah. At that time, I think I used Soul Architect.
Mm,
And then you actually
right.
also asked me a very specific question about like why did I use Soul Architect?
Mhm.
And I think the energy refinement is an evolution
Mm,
that came from Soul Architect. Is that Soul Architect gives a bit more of a, I don't know, like non-tangible, mysterious type of vibe. And energy refinement is somewhere between tangible and non-tangible.
mm,
Is first of all that we have to understand that we are all energy.
yeah.
And this is based on quantum physics. Every cells in our body is regenerating itself every single second and every single moment. In human design, Ra suggested that we need 7 years to decondition. But if you've actually explored Ra's lectures, he say that that 7 year of um, time that's needed for regeneration is just for those people who need a template to
Mm,
go through,
mhm,
which I found is super interesting
mm,
because that was how I felt in the middle of my experiment. And the 7 years is just when your cells can fully replace you
mm,
as a brand new human being.
yeah.
But then the way our liver regenerate is different than how our hair is regenerating.
Right.
So when we have this foundation, then we can look at energy refinement because this type of regeneration doesn't just happen blindly. It happens through how your mind is influencing your body. So there are people who never changes. because they are not aware that they have a potential to be a new person every minute.
Mm.
So to refine is really to hold on to the vision
Mm.
of who you want to be, the personality that you want to encompass within you, but not in a rigid way.
Mm.
Essentially, our personality is not inside of us, according to human design. It actually sits above us.
Mm.
And that is the energy that we are refining, not because we want to use this personality to become more successful or make more money. And all of that is that, wow, can I really fully say I really love this personality
Mm.
that I am borrowing in this lifetime?
Mm-hmm.
And to know that it's kind of like Jenga,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
not exactly, but it's like you're kind of taking pieces and then moving around,
Yeah.
moving around it, and to fully integrate it. And that also comes from being a musician, being a pianist,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that when we have a piece of music that we decide to play, we can spend ages to refine it
Yeah.
and never be satisfied.
Yeah.
And that is one of the artist trap as well. But then if you listen to the musicians like Yo-Yo Ma or people who are older,
Mm-hmm.
some of them would say that actually, like, I take this piece to play every decade. And every decade it feels different
Yeah.
because of how I have matured, how I have experienced
Mm.
gives new life to this piece I'm shaping. So energy refinement actually very much comes from that sense, is that at some moment we have to say, okay, this is enough.
Mm-hmm.
This is enough. And there are little nuances in the energy that we are holding that can be shifted.
Mm.
It also comes from that I really don't think people need healing. They need to make a decision and choose a version of themselves they want to live with.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And but then the refinement comes through the process of choosing
Yeah.
and continue to choose.
Yeah. 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 I feel like healing is actually a very recently, this is a definition of healing I've been thinking about, which is as long as you're not dead, that means you're healing. Like your body is regenerating its own cell, like there's
Exactly.
no there's no extra effort necessary. And
Mhm.
and in some ways, I feel like in that sense, like even just thinking about the name of the podcast, like healing the spirit became like it has a different meaning because to me there is this kind of separation that we've created from our spirit. And so it's more about like reestablishing this connection, you know?
Yes.
And and I'm kind of hearing a similar or a resonant strand there to what you were speaking about because in a way, right, like that version of yourself you want to live with comes
Mhm.
from this greater force, right? Like it comes from a
Yeah.
deeper part of you. It comes from like your spirit, your soul, whatever word you want to use for it. It comes from that part. Like you're kind of picking from that vaster body of choice that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that 3-5 really teaches all of us
Mm.
a lot, is that make a decision.
Yeah.
Make a decision. But then the idea of healing that is more generalized today
Yeah.
in spiritual spaces or
Hmm.
conscious spaces is more like, how can I actually release the version of me that keep attracting the
Mm.
same experience. And it's
Mm.
not even about releasing, it's about, hey, why are you still focusing on it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of actively choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to a full circle of like sacral addiction and identity addiction,
Yeah.
G-center addiction, who I
Yeah.
am,
Yeah.
all that stuff that human design has a great wisdom to share with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Cool. Any final words you want to share with before we kind of wrap up?
I think it's just, I think it's being a 2-4 and then connecting with a 3-5 right now. that is that is coming through me. Yeah.
Say more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it feels like the message that wants to come through is really to not be ashamed of yourself and not be ashamed of the cringe that you
Yes.
are um, displaying
Yeah.
in this world.
Yeah.
Because the deconditioning process is going to show you parts of you that you are not proud of
Mm.
and parts of you that can add a bit more fun in the world, even if some people hate it.
Mm.
And at the end, it's truly about preferences. It's about preferences and it's about persistency of what
Mm-hmm.
you want to commit to as a person,
Yeah.
as a human being.
Yeah.
Um, and really don't worry about experimenting it wrong because you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't go wrong with it as long as you are committed to your authority and strategy, especially for projectors. Because if a projector is not radically a projector, they are not a projector.
Mm.
And we really need to be diligent with this to recognize whether we are choosing to do something because of the conditioning in the personality, in the mind,
Mm.
or because this is something your body really wants to respond to.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Any upcoming offering that you have in the fall that you want to speak to?
So I always have a year-round mentorship
Mm-hmm.
that I offer consistently on my website that goes between 3 months, 5 months, or 6 months, sometimes more, because it's really depending on the individual, what they need, what they want,
Mm-hmm.
where they are. So that is always happening. It doesn't matter you are a projector, generator, manifestor. I had a lot of manifestor clients in the past. I also have few reflector clients. So it doesn't matter what energy type you are. It's 100% tailor made that matches where you are right now to where you want to be, or maybe there's nowhere you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just want to go deeper within yourself. That
Yeah.
is absolutely all right as well. But then next year, I'm currently curating a projector centered program to invite all the projector into it,
Mm.
into their projectorhood, based on their unique design, because every projector is wildly different
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just with human design, but a system that I have been studying and continue to find fascinated of over the last couple of decades. Um, so you will also come in contact with Tao philosophy, come with I Ching, not necessarily to learn about it, but to see yourself through it, so you can operate and feel more at ease with the whole energetics that happens in the collective. As we are moving closer to 2027, the projector era is coming. I think it's become more and more important for projectors to know where their position is at, but starting with awareness and understanding where an experiential beings and guide from that place if you are invited to.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you so much, John. It's always been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's always amazing to have you. Thanks.